For the next 12 weeks, we're going to go around the Jersey Shore with some of the top industry leaders and exploring all the hidden gems that the Jersey Shore has to offer. And the best thing about it, we're going to do it on our Tandem bike. Come check us out. Ride this thing. Pat.
Bill, how are you?
Fancy seeing you here.
Good morning.
How you doing, my friend?
What are you doing?
We're going to take a bike ride. You have some time?
Sure.
So the reason why I chose Pat is because when I think about Asbury Park and commercial real estate, Pat is Asbury Commercial. He has the history. He's been in here. He's one of the pioneers of Asbury Park, not only as an investor, but as a commercial salesperson. And so Pat's going to give us a history of everything commercial Asbury Park. So Pat, let's hop on, brother.
That's a big task, but we'll try. All right, here we go.
All right, ready?
Ready.
All right. I'll do the steering,
All right.
and you don't even have to pedal. You can pretend.
All right. Oh, good. Well, we're in the 600 block of Cookman right now, and you'll see that most of these buildings were built at the turn of the century, if not earlier. And now we're approaching Press Plaza, where the most beautiful buildings downtown are. We have the Post building to our left, which was renovated by Sapman to condos upstairs. Black Swan restaurant underneath, and then this is the Steinbeck building.
Over to the right?
To the left.
To the left. Where Asbury townhouses.
Yep. This building was built in 1885, 86, and it's about 94,000 square feet. Yep. It was purchased. It was vacant for many years. Steinbeck moved out in the 1980s at some point, and the building was vacant for maybe 12, 15 years.
So how long have you been in Asbury Park?
Well, I started buying real estate in 1984.
Okay.
I was in the music business.
Which building? Was the
Steinbeck building.
this one?
I was in the music business, and I was a struggling artist at the time.
Okay.
And when I was young, both careers seemed very exciting and fun to be in. But then I realized when I started to get a little bit older that I better start preparing for my future. So I thought real estate would be a good way for me not to have a real job and build up some equity for my future. So in 1984, I purchased my first property. It was actually in Neptune,
Okay.
which is the border property from here. I bought a house for $17,000.
Was it single family or was it commercial?
No, it was a single family house. I had no money when I started, so I scraped together my change in pennies, and I could only purchase what I could afford. And $17,000 was affordable to me back then.
I'd say you probably have a good ROI on that from today. Do you still own it?
No, that's long gone.
Okay.
Well, you know the business. You know, you build up the equity, you sell, and then you you buy something bigger. You know, because you can afford a bigger down payment.
Yeah.
It's a leverage business. So anyway, I was buying up anything that I could possibly afford back then. It was rough. You know, the rough neighborhoods, rough tenants. Everyone thought I was absolutely out of my mind.
Yeah, I'd say this area is definitely different as far as rental properties. You know, even like 15
Well,
years
there
ago.
were no rental downtown. Downtown was 100% commercial. There were very few apartments back then. What you see today is a conversion of those buildings into apartments, because today you couldn't have all commercial. You would have half of the units would be vacant, right? So residential was the only play. So Carter Safin came in, Safin as president, bought the Steinbeck building. He created 63 apartments over the 20,000 or so square foot of commercial, and you know the commercial that's fronting Cookman, which where we are right now, are bars and restaurants. So it brings an entertainment factor in, which draws a lot of people.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think about the amount of people that want to be downtown Asbury Park, live here, and obviously the commercial that's really taking place.
If you look to the right over here, you'll see other historical buildings. And like I said before, all of these were 100% commercial when Asbury was in its heyday. And back then, you could cash flow these. But today, this is all office space. You can get in the water. So residential is the way to go.
And I'm sure a lot of these were probably condoed out, right, and sold?
Well, some are condos and some are apartments. Mostly apartments, though. Mostly. These are Sacman Real Estate offices.
That's the enterprise, right? So you guys run the real estate investments, the management, and the sales division through that office, right?
Yeah, basically different companies, but all related. So
awesome.
We have the brokerage that does the rentals and the sales, and then we have the management company that manages the properties, and then of course the New Jersey headquarters is there. If you look on both sides of the street, Sacman owns the majority.
So what percentage of commercial real estate would you say Sacman owns on Cookman?
Well, they own predominantly, that's hard to say, I have to do the math, but
a decent amount, right?
A decent amount, yeah. You know, the way it was divvied up back then is that the 600 block where I lived and worked, and I've lived since 2000, was kind of the first place to start percolating. As my art career started to get some traction, I was living in a small house in Ocean Grove, and I needed a space to do my art and hopefully to live and have a gallery. And Asbury Park was like totally vacant at that point, so I set my sights on the downtown to find that building. And at the time, New Jersey had this upstairs downtown mortgage program where they would give you acquisition money to purchase a building, and then it would give you money to renovate the building. And the idea was to bring artists and creative people into areas in need of rehabilitation. So I used that loan to buy this building, and that was kind of the first thing that happened down there.
And that's the same building, right, where your art gallery is.
Yeah, I'm still there. I'm still in that same building. And the irony of that whole story is that my desire was to become a full-time artist at that point, and then I became full-time real estate.
Well, you still do the artist, you still have the gallery, and now you have apartments up top?
This is my gallery right here.
All right, so we're here in Pat's gallery. This was actually Pat's first purchase in Asbury Park.
Right, well, I needed a place to live and work and have a gallery as an artist, because that was my career choice back then, and that led me to the downtown. And I opened this gallery. I bought the building in 2000, moved in 2001, opened the gallery officially around 2004.
Okay, so you've been here all 21 years.
Yeah, I've been here 21 years, and We do a lot of events here. We have music, obviously we have art all the time. We rotate the shows. Right now this is Brittany James' work. We're having a closing party on the 24th, the Saturday from this. I don't know if this will air at that point. And then we have a new show coming in for our event with North to Shore, the Asbury Underground, and we're featuring, I think, 8 artists who are also teachers, educators. And there's such a fertile art community here, so that we constantly have different shows, mostly featuring local artists, because I'd like to give them a platform where they might be turned down by other galleries, perhaps, or don't have an opportunity to show on a regular basis. We give them the opportunity here. But Brittany's been running this gallery for me for several years now, so it's one less thing that I have to do.
Yeah.
But she's kept it a very vibrant place. So.
Yeah, I'd say the gallery, the business, the properties you manage.
Asbury Underground, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Well, keep busy, which keeps you looking good.
Well, like I said before, I probably look better than I feel.
So you have apartments on top of the gallery as well?
Just my apartment.
Oh, so you've lived there for how long?
I lived here since, well, it took me about a year to renovate the building.
Okay.
So I moved in at the end of 2000, maybe 2001. So I've been there quite a while.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I remember, back in 2000, Asbury's definitely a different place than it is today.
It's funny because the perception was back then that it was dangerous, but in reality it really wasn't, because there was nobody here. It was a ghost town. So if you were a criminal, you weren't coming here because there was nothing to rob. so which is funny. It's not, and that was attractive to us because, in other cities, you're asking people to move into dangerous areas, right?
Yeah.
But here, because it was a ghost town, you had no neighbors. And then as people moved in, they were of the same ilk and personality. So back then, it was all artists and musicians and creatives here. And honestly speaking, I enjoyed it a lot better back then. There were only a couple of places to go eat and drink, only a couple of bars open.
Yeah.
And when you would go out, you would know everybody. It was really a neighborhood. Now, of course, because of progress, it's become much.
Tours.
There's my attorney, Andy. Gotta wait for him. So I hope that we get pictures of videos of these buildings. Because they're really beautiful, and that's why they need to be saved. And what we're seeing around the world today, well, maybe not in Europe so much, but especially in this country, is the total disregard for historic buildings, and that really shouldn't be. Because you're never going to build buildings like this again. And if the labor that was involved in the materials back then would be way too cost prohibitive today to build the same buildings. When you see buildings with marble fronts and just intricate stonework and just the architecture, copper, they don't build like that anymore.
Yeah, everything's plastic and vinyl and cheaply made made for profit.
So anyway, so that's why I'm glad that that most of the buildings have been saved. Of course, on the blocks where there was really nothing left to save, those buildings had to be raised and new buildings were built.
And now the construction, I'm sure you've seen it on. Now, did you ever think, like 20 years ago,
you're gonna think that I'm crazy, but I always lived in the present. All right, and I only did what was comfortable for me to do. So I never overstepped to make myself crazy, to overextend myself. I was very conservative, but the beachfront at that point was in a bankruptcy, and I've been sitting there for years with no action whatsoever. But the thought was that this is Jersey Shore, an hour out of Manhattan, with a major train station, Parkway. I mean, how could it not come back? They just don't make a beachfront in the metropolitan area that goes vacant forever, right? So eventually I knew something had to happen. It was just too valuable.
So were you nervous, like coming in and being a pioneer?
No, I wasn't nervous because I wasn't overextended, right? So, I never had to sit on vacancies. I stayed within my envelope of comfort, so I didn't make myself crazy, right? So, I don't think of myself as a developer because the people that I'm dealing with every day are real developers now. I mean, they've got like tremendous projects going on.
Yeah.
So I never really thought about ever attaining that in my life. It wasn't something that was paramount to me. I just, I wanted to keep in touch with the arts. I wanted to keep in touch with the music, and I wanted to just, stay me, basically, right? So that's my story. I never ran out and looked for partners and tried to put together businesses, to develop these properties. Like, I was never that guy.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'd say this, 30 years later, I mean, that's definitely now, it's genius, right? Most investors would look at you and say...
Well, look, real estate, you don't have to be a genius. You buy it today, it simply doesn't go down, all right? I mean, you may have ebbs and flows of value, but this was a no-brainer. I mean, I never felt that I was taking any risk here.
Yeah.
Because it was every year, it just got better and better and better, and more people came in. And I was in touch with all this because I did a lot of these deals. The reason I'm still working is because the people that I originally sold these buildings to, on my suggestion or my vision of what this could be, right? And I didn't know what I was talking about. I mean, I just, that's how I felt. I was passionate that this was going to happen. So that was, exciting to people that had a lot more money than me.
Yeah.
All right, so...
I'd say this. Hopefully, they're grateful of
that's
that vision that you had.
What I was saying before is that's why I'm still working, because they're coming back to me now, and instead of me making a commission on a $200,000 building, I'm making a commission on a $4 million building.
Yeah.
All right. So they've remained loyal to me too, which doesn't always happen in our world. All right. But I just feel like there's only a few of them that bought up most of the real estate here.
Yeah.
Right. So so I'm not dealing with 100 people. I'm dealing with maybe a dozen people.
Who own a lot of the real estate in town. No, that's great.
So that's where I built my equity in my life. In establishing relationships with these people, doing the right thing, and and they've come back, which is great. We've become more of a seasonal town, and in the summer, obviously, it blows up. And if you're a retailer or a restaurant owner, you have to re-staff, right?
Yeah.
When the season's coming, so you have this, you always have a whole new group of people that have to be trained. You don't know how they're going to do once the doors open, so there's always this flux period where you might go and maybe not get the best service, right? But they fix it, all right? So that's one of the problems with being a seasonal town.
Yeah, it's funny because it's hard to realize that Asbury, even though there's still a lot of people, a lot of things open, it seems like it's a regular normal town, but you're right, with the beach and the amount of traffic that we get in the summer, that it is seasonal, just like any other Jersey Shore town.
Yeah. So, I mean, and plus, you know, we have a lot of our population that doesn't live in town all year round either. All right, so
a lot of second homes.
A lot of second homes, a lot of retired people, a lot of snowbirds.
Yeah.
You know, they go to Florida, or they go someplace warm in winter and come back here in the summer because they want to be around the beach.
I know the beaches, like if you came to Asbury Beach 10 years ago,
Yeah.
like there was like 4 people.
Yeah.
And now in July, it's freaking packed. It's
it's insane. You know, it's gotten to the point where even I don't enjoy going anymore. But when I lived in Ocean Grove Beach used to be packed, and I used to just walk down the beach and go underneath the casino pier.
Yeah.
And go to Asbury, and there was nobody.
Yeah.
It was like packed, umbrella to umbrella, blanket to blanket. And
It's
then
an
you
open
go
beach.
to Asbury, boom, and there was nobody there. So I felt like I had my own private beach. Well, those days are gone.
The good old days.
See, I'm very nostalgic about my history here because at one point I had the whole town and the beach to myself.
So I don't blame you. I don't blame you
So
for
there
wanting
you
to
go.
go out to
But,
see the
yeah,
change.
You can't hold back progress. So, and I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's different now. That's all. Yeah, well, Bruce has been, you know, I mean, obviously he put us on the map,
Yep.
right? I mean, I can't go anywhere and say, have you heard of Asbury Park without Bruce Springsteen coming up?
Yeah.
All right, so, you know, everyone knows about Asbury Park because of his popularity. Arguably, maybe the most, you know, popular musician on the planet, right? And he's from here. I mean, I remember when I owned the Wonder Bar that, you know, he used to come in on Sundays and just hang out and just be a regular
Like
guy.
a normal guy, yeah.
Because he could.
Yeah.
That was before cell phones. You know, nowadays, you know, those guys, they can't go anywhere because immediately everyone knows where he is. Right?
Yeah.
So, but back then he could come, he could hang out. We put a piano behind the bar for him so he would go up and like play and do things. And it wasn't unusual to see him just walking around, like, you know, because he could.
Yeah.
Especially when the town was vacant, you know. So hopefully he was getting, you know, inspired for some of his music.
Oh, I never knew you owned the Wonder Bar.
Oh yeah, I had all of them. I had Porta, the Wonder Bar, with my partner Pat Fasano.
Yeah.
And you know, I was in a very good position back then because there was a bank that foreclosed on a lot of these buildings.
Yeah.
And they came to me, and I was like their
You're the
broker.
go-to.
I was their realtor. So I had like first digs on like a lot of these buildings, and what we couldn't afford to buy ourselves, you know, I sold to other people. So, you know, guys like Sitar and some of these other developers who came in, you know, they were all proactive. They weren't speculators, and I kind of had a control over that because I didn't want speculators coming in and sitting on properties. I wanted developers that were going to come in and develop the properties, because you don't want vacant buildings just sitting there forever.
Yeah, no, especially it doesn't protect your investment, right?
Well,
I mean,
sure.
You know, it's good to get the right people in and doing the right things and having that synergy.
You know, I have to give a lot of credit to my partner Pat Fasano, who I had known in an earlier life when I was involved with the Uncle Floyd show, and he had a bar in New Brunswick, and we used to talk all the time on the phone, and I used to send him bands, or he used to send me bands to put on the show on television. And you know, we only knew each other over the phone, and then when we met face to face, we realized that we'd known each other all this time.
Yeah.
And the reason that I met him downtown is because he was the only one here that was looking at the same buildings that I was looking at.
So it was like your competition.
Yeah, yeah.
So instead of competing against them.
So I put this whole book together on all the vacant buildings, the square footage, of, you know, proposed use, the condition, right? I put it with photograph back then, right? Before computers, photographs and a typewriter in my quest for trying to find a building for myself. And believe me, I was the only one here, I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like what is it, the Andromeda Man? What was that movie called? I forget. But
yeah, the Renaissance Man.
Well, but I made offers on my first pit, and the owner said, "Oh, I have a contract on that." And I said, "What?" Like, okay.
Who else is doing this?
Right. And then I made an offer on a second building, that, oh, we have a contract on this. And I found out it was a developer who was developing in Ocean Grove, where I live. Right?
Yeah.
So I went, he was doing a hotel. So I went to the hotel, he wasn't there, but I got his number, and I called him up, and I said, you know, I'm trying to buy a building downtown, and there's nobody here but you, apparently, and I think we should talk, right? And in that conversation, we realized that we knew each other. So it was this like weird, like
synergy,
amazing thing that happened. And then we partnered up on a bunch of buildings downtown. He was much further along in real estate development than me, and is much further along now. Like I said, you know, that's what he does. You know, that's his passion. Yeah. And I love him, and you know, he's a great guy, and we've had a great relationship all these years. But he's a true visionary, and now he's in Atlantic City. You know, and he's seeing the same, you know,
potential.
The same potential, yeah, to do that. But you know, knowing him the way I do, it's not about making money with him. It's about, you know, doing something that is really vital. You know, to leave, you know, to make an impression or to leave a legacy of, hey, you know, I was the first one in. Yeah. I took a shot. You know, and I see him doing it now in Atlantic City, working feverishly on what we call the Orange Loop, and you know, also the inlet there. And once again, it's New Jersey beachfront property in a town that arguably may have been the most famous town in the world at one point. Yeah. So once again, it has to come back, right? It has to. And it's going to be a lot of pain, and a lot of suffering, and a lot of investment, but it's going to happen.
Well, it has to, right? It's like, where else could they develop? You know, it's like.
And I get it. And if I wasn't 70, I would say, okay, but you know, I don't know if I have another 30 years, or 20 years, or 10 years even. So yeah, I'll let him, because he loves doing that. Let him do it, and God bless him.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That was. It's always interesting to hear the stories about behind the people who, you know, are behind the scenes, and it's like funny that you did the work like 30 years ago. If you pretty much created the MLS for commercial real estate, like old school, using pen and pad and figuring out all these buildings and knowing the history. And that's why I think people do come to you, because you're the guy.
And truth be told, I still do it that way.
Yeah.
All right, back to home base.
Back to home. All right.
Well, thank you for that, Phil.
And Pat, I appreciate the time, and as always, it's a pleasure, and learn so much about Asbury and the history and everything commercial. So I think if you need more information about anything Asbury, and you need a history lesson, I know Pat's your guy.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks again.
I really appreciate it. And thank you.
Okay, so that's a wrap. That's the first episode of Tour the Shore. And I'd like to thank Pat for the time and the knowledge. So we have 7 more episodes over the next 12 weeks. And if you'd like to have your local professional sit and ride on the back seat and tour the shore, give us a call.